Hello everyone, it's Diane. I have been working on collecting vintage ephemera for quite some time, and I have quite a bit of paper. Vintage ledger papers, things from the railroad companies, a logbook from a pilot school, some really cool things. And I'm working on making some books with vintage ephemera. I'm pretty excited about actually diving in and using some of my vintage ephemera. But I realized that I don't have a lot of small pieces. I have sheets that can be the pages, and I have a few small pieces. But I decided I needed to supplement by making vintage embellishments, cards, tags, what have you. Some of it is made with scraps, so they're actually vintage papers, and some of it's made with scraps from copy-dyed papers and other things like that. And this is what I've been making over the last several days. So I thought I would share it with you. This probably won't be to everyone's taste, but I thought I would show it, and we all like to get ideas from others. And I like to see what other people make, especially with the small things like this. So let's just start right in. So these are just things, I got out all my, well, not all my stamps, a lot of stamps. I got out just a pile of stamps, and I had all my scraps next to me, and I just kind of would pick up a set of stamps and look for something I could use it on. And boy, is my room a mess. But this is a piece of manila card folder, or file folder, that was copy dyed. And I have this really neat stamp that I got, I think at Hobby Lobby in the clearance section the last time I was there. So I just made that into a journaling card. Used it again on this copy dyed music paper. And I even used just little tiny pieces. Some of these things will be layered and tucked behind, and they won't be used singly, but some of them will be. This was just a stamp I stamped on some parchment paper, because I've been printing some things on parchment paper and they don't take up the whole page, and the parchment paper isn't cheap, so I thought I'm gonna use these scraps. So I stamped that on it to use as a journaling spot, and these also. And this is just a scrap of some thin craft card. I stamped this on it and inked around it. Parchment paper again. Here's some scraps of copy dyed grid paper that I stamped on. This is a scrap from the railway logbook that I have. I just stamped that on it and left room around it for journaling. Copy dyed paper scrap. This was also in the clearance section at Hobby Lobby the last time I was there. This is a vintage notebook paper, and it's just a scrap, so I stamped on it. I'll use it as a journaling spot. It says memories. The scrap of vintage music paper, so I stamped in the corner. Also on this piece, the same stamp. And the same stamp on a piece of manila card folder, or file folder. I always say it wrong. More folder. This is a piece of tracing paper that was stamped on, or copy dyed. So I stamped on it, and I'm not sure what it will be used for. Layering, or just stapled to a page, or something. It'll be used for something. Here's a pretty little stamp that I have. This is on the parchment paper, and I inked around the edges. Copy dyed paper. And then I have these little tags. Most of these were cut with my Cricut out of file folder. So, and some of them are copy dyed. This was cut with the Big Shot and then embossed with the Big Shot. And I have these. My arm was actually sore from stamping. And probably from inking the edges. Some larger tags and cards. Copy dyed. This is a background stamp. Copy dyed paper. I do have these. These are very vintage. Betty Crocker, I think. Coupons you could save to, when you collected enough, you could get some silverware. And I found these at a flea market, so I will be backing these with some card that can be journaled on. Some of them anyway. I want to leave some of the backs plain, but there were quite a few of them. I got these circles. My mom gave me some cutout shaped tags a while ago, and they were just this plain color. So I stamped and inked them. And there's another shape too that you'll see that she gave me. This is just, whoop, I dropped one of them, but there's two of these. This is just a ticket shape that I stamped on parchment. And someone gave me these jars, so I inked around them and stamped the word today. And then I punched these squares out with just a punch that I have. And I have a stamp, 7 Gypsies stamp set that has a lot of numbers, different fonts of numbers, and a few words. So that's one of them. This is one size fits all. So these will probably be layered with other bits of ephemera to make interesting elements. I like to do layering. I used the edges of my folders. This also came from the 7 Gypsies stamp set. So they'll be fun for layering too. These are just stamps that I stamped onto cards, manila file folders, and cut them out. They were copy dyed folders, so they look vintage. And this is the other shape of ivory cardstock that my mom gave me. These are some larger pieces. This is a very heavy file, tab file. And this is a background stamp. These are some cards I showed that I got at the flea market last time I went, and they were just blue, heavy. I got a box of 100 of them. And I didn't know how they would take to copy dyeing because they have a kind of a glossy finish, not absorbent, but I really like the way they look copy dyed. And then I inked around the edges, did I think a caramel color stamp for a background stamp, and then stamped this on in black. And I don't really know what happened here. It looks like the copy dyeing just got scrunched over there, but it's kind of cool. I don't know how that happened. Copy dyed paper, copy dyed index card, and library pockets. There's a piece of tissue paper with that background stamp. I stamped that with green stays on. Some cards here. I had a lot of fun using some stamps that I don't use very often. This is that heavy card also. And this is a stamp set I have that This is one of the stamps, and then it has 3 sets of word stamps that stamp onto the blank lines. I left some blank and I stamped. I did all 3 sets, but I used one of them in one of the books I'm making. And this is part of the same set. And then this is one of my really fun sets. It's a clear stamp set, and I can't remember who makes it, but I found it by chance. Not at a craft store. I think it was at a Walmart when they used to carry things like this. But I just stamped them on copy dyed paper and cut them out. I think there's 6 different stamps with this set. And then this is a different stamp. Okay, and I also have a set from Stampin' Up! Called Define Your Life, and I've done these before. I used my strips of copy dyed paper that got cut off the edges, and some of that copy dyeing is just too lovely to throw away. So these make really good banners. I just stamp the definitions. There's one for each letter of the alphabet, and then cut it into the fishtail banner, as I have a whole alphabet's worth of those. This is a vintage computation book, and I love this paper. And I had used it for pages in the book, and I didn't want to waste the scrap, so I just stamped these on them and inked around the edges. I'm getting close to running out of time here, so I'm going to hurry. These are just Day to Remember stamped on file folder. Tags, copy dyed file folders. Oh, there it is. And that. And then this was just little scraps of my file folders. I stamped these random numbers on and then used my square scallop punch and punched the edges just to give it a little interest, and inked around the edges. I can use them for tabs or layering again. Tickets that I stamped onto copy dyed card file folders. I did some library cards, copy dyed and stamped on them. And then the last collection here is, I think these are pretty much all paper. This is parchment paper, folded, punched, and stamped. I love lists. So that's a long one. This is vintage composition book paper. So I did have to ink around the edges because when you cut it, you're not on the edge anymore and it doesn't look as vintage there. But it is definitely vintage paper. I think I showed these. I had done these before. I just inked them this time around. And another piece of copy dyed paper, and the last one is more that computation notebook. It's folded kind of funky, and I stamped odds and ends, and I stamped those little circles there, and I love lists. So that's what I've been up to the last few days, and now I'm busy working on making the vintage ephemera book, and I will be using many of these elements I'm making several of those books, and I'll be using these elements. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing this. Let me know if you like seeing things made like this. I enjoy seeing what other people do. Thank you so much.